Bachi. Yeah. All right. On that note, I'd like to welcome everyone to the uh, information session we have lined up on our Friday today. It's our Friday 1 o'clock habit. So I'm thankful for everyone for joining our session today. We have a big group of attendees, but also we have a great group of speakers and panelists here. It's a very good way to get started. Um, Learning more about the new things that are happening in our industry, particularly since our industry, healthcare, is front and center. It's front and center of the COVID-19 pandemic. Last year, we were talking about how we're all responding to this. I think all of us have responded in varying ways, in innovative ways and approaches towards healthcare and how we support our clients and so forth. But uh, today we're going to talk a little bit more about healthcare digital. And we are so thankful. We have a very esteemed list of speakers and panelists. First of all, I'd like to thank our moderator, Randy, who's always there to help us in all these sessions. Thankful to have Praveen Tatya of Conifer Health as our main speaker, and our panelists, Sunil Gupta and Michelle Alarcon from Sunil is from Cognizant and Michelle is from the Analytics Association of the Philippines. Uh, I really look forward to a very interesting discussion today as we look at uh, AI and how we're growing artificial intelligence and robotics and automation in our industry. So, on that note, I welcome everybody to today's session and would like to turn this over to Randy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Roger. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Randy Knutson, and I'm the founder and CEO of DynaQuest Technology Services. And I'll be doing the moderation today of today's session. I'm very excited about today's session, and I'm sure a lot of you are as well, too, that these represent two of the most exciting areas in the healthcare, health tech today, AI and data analytics. Before I introduce our first speaker, I'd like to kind of frame a little bit of the problem and the challenge that we face in healthcare. And that's really a data problem. And there's really two aspects of that data problem is we collect too much data and we're generating even more data. In fact, one estimate that just this year alone, we're going to generate 2,300 exabytes of new data are going to be added to that pile of data that's already out there. And an exabyte is equal to 1 trillion terabytes, just to give your perspective. And so through AI and data analytics will provide us the potential to help, transform many areas of healthcare. And there's a lot of hype and there's a lot of reality that's out there. And it's used in areas, everything from fraud detection to fighting cancer. And in the U.S. alone, healthcare data analytics is growing to more than $31 billion in the year 2022, while investments in AI and healthcare research in the U.S. alone is going to be more than $2 billion over the next several years. And so how do we create meaningful, relevant insights and turn that mountain of data into information? And that's what we're here to talk about today is AI, data analytics, and healthcare. And so it's really exciting, as Roger pointed out, that we brought together some industry experts to help us understand where we are and where we've been and where we're looking forward to in the industry and use in these areas that are so important to healthcare. So as I mentioned, even with all the hype and expectation, it's not without its challenges. So data privacy issues, fragmented data in silos, and data quality present significant challenges that we'll touch on today. So let's get to the speech and our next speaker, and give me a brief introduction before we turn it over to Praveen. Praveen Tatia is responsible for driving the business transformation and digitization across the enterprise for all the RCM patient services, clinical revenue, integrity, and AR management. He brings over 20 years of experience in the BPO environment, having worked at Accenture, Cognizant, Genpact, and has a proven track record in turnaround performing processes and driving end-to-end business transformation and innovation. He is a certified Lean Six Sigma practitioner, working on high-impact, multi-million-dollar projects in robotics, artificial intelligence, and process optimization. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Praveen. Thank you.
Thanks, Randy, and thanks for setting it up. I think that was a kind of an introduction my father would have been really proud to hear, but since he's not attending the meetings, I'll just pass on that and say Randy said some great words about me. But thanks a lot. And definitely, guys, it's a kind of an exciting afternoon. Usually I'm sleeping at this time because I work in nights, but when this offer came and they said, why don't you, Praveen, come and join us? I was super excited. It's very rare that we get a chance to talk to our fellow fraternity people and talk about something that's really passionate. And not only passionate, becomes a point for us to drive our future. In next 20 to 25 minutes, I'm going to quickly share my screen and we'll take you through a couple of things that we are working and how is this entire concept of AI analytics is looking into the system. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes.
Perfectly fine. Now, the point is that when we talk about AI analytics, this session of 20-25 minutes, guys, I'm promising you is not going to make you an expert in AI and analytics. A lot of people come to me and say, Praveen, give me in a gist, what is AI analytics for me and how will it change my life? And I always tell them, it's not a story that's going to be built overnight. This session is not going to make you an expert of AI analytics. This session is only going to help us to open our thought process. And my intention today is to give you a brief of what's happening in this world, how the world looks like when it comes to AI analytics, what kind of products we can see through, and how's Conifer helping us. As Randy rightly said, I recently joined Conifer as their transformation and digitization lead, and we at Conifer are committed to bring best of analytics and AI to help our RCM process, the entire revenue cycle management process, take it to the next level. Now, when I was looking at this entire slide and I was trying to pick together my story, I said, let's start with a very famous quotation coming from Gartner. Gartner, again, is a very, very famous, and I don't have to give introduction to them, but they made a prediction somewhere in 2021, like around 2020, that by 2025, 1/3 of all our skilled work will be done by doctors, lawyers, and traders will be replaced by smart machines, or people who are lesser skilled but has got some human factor along with cognitive computing there. 1/3 of the key jobs getting replaced. And by 2030, 90% of the jobs that we know today might be getting replaced by smart machines. And we have started seeing that culture happening while we are living in this world today. Now, some of these timelines may shift because of COVID, but more or less you really see that in today's world, we are getting a stronger presence felt with a lot of AI thing coming up, with a lot of analytics coming up to us. I also believe this is a kind of a time when digital transformation is bound to happen. If you look at the other segments like finance and accounting, IT, yeah, there's a lot of transformation already happening, but healthcare is one industry which was not like that deeply penetrated, and therefore it's inevitable. But while we're talking about all these things, the one thing that really comes into my mind is, are we really ready for our digital transformation journey? Well, what I'm going to talk in next few minutes will be how is kind of a classic digital transformation journey looks like. And when I talk about it, the reason I'm forcing again is a lot of people confused by saying that, oh, digital transformation journey is all about getting an artificial intelligence, which is not the truth. So let's look at a kind of a classic setup of saying how it looks like. And I'm going to quickly walk you through what kind of digital transformation we are looking at a Conifer level. I'm sorry, guys, it's a slightly busy slide. And what I will do is that I'll quickly use my pointer to make sure that we all are able to get aligned on this. Now, if you look at a typical digital transformation journey, I'll try to talk you through a kind of step-by-step approach. It's not that AI is the only thing that's going to be part of your digital transformation. It has to have a kind of a sequential journey. And if you look at this chart is the baseline that I wanted to create for my company, and not only for my company, for the entire setup that you are looking at. It starts with something which is very, very basic, which is mini bots. And therefore, like when you go to a hotel, you have a menu, right? Similarly, a digital transformation has a menu of things that can be done through it. It starts with mini bots, and these are like tools and applications which are Excel based, simple things that can be easily automated. But from here, the mini bots and most of the companies are trying to develop their own bots, some Excel visual by basics, scripts, macros, which can help us to do some basic work, some copy pasting element kind of a thing. But then usually what happens is that copy pasting element or consolidation element using some scripts is not going to solve all my problem. And therefore I need to move to a slightly higher end stuff, which is more complex in nature and which is having some kind of stability. And that's where I'm looking at things like robotic process automation. Now, these are more complex algorithms, software written for us. Things like automation anywhere. You might have heard Blue Prism, UiPath, Fusion, Jakarta. They all are happening in this space of the world. A lot of companies have already evolved over there. They are already using RPAs along with mini bots. And while we are doing the stage 1 and stage 2, then comes the classic stage 3, which is analytics and digital. Now, usually companies want to do a lot of analysis. They get the analysis done on an Excel sheet. But when I talk about analytics, it's a kind of a different ball game altogether. And I'll talk through it, how it can really help us to be a very powerful predictive company or predictive segment of healthcare. You heard Randy talking about saying that we have got trillions of data getting generated and we don't even know what we're going to do with that data. And that's where analytics becomes a key segment for us. And while you're looking at analytics, there is a plethora of tools available in the market today, right? From Splunk, NextIT, Nuance, IPsoft, and Media, they all can work for you. And then on the top of the line of your transformation journey comes artificial intelligence. Now, AI again, first of all, guys, and this is a kind of a frequently asked question is, do we really support AI or do we really support robots? My answer to them is, guys, most of us have been grown seeing those Terminator movies where a robot comes and destroys the world. We're not talking about those kind of artificial intelligence or robots. What we're talking about are the softwares that are going to mimic human action and is going to help humans to do a faster computing, will take away some of the non-value add work that we are doing or repetitive work that we are doing. And then that's going to be focusing like what a human brain is doing for us. And that's why AI becomes very, very segmental in our approach. And it's a very, very powerful way of getting high level of efficiency in our processes. Now, the reason I'm putting a kind of a scope over here and saying, guys, every organization, if they really want to go on a digital transformation journey, they need to have presence in both all the 4 segments. Maybe you have to start with bots, going to RPAs, analytics, and AI. And it is not necessarily sequential. You don't have to go like and say, I'll go from 1, 2, 3, 4. They can be in parallel. But the most important part is that you drive them together or in parallel or in a sequence, but you focus on all 4 elements to see how they complement each other. What's critical for you, and some of you might be seeing that how are we going to differentiate between an AI versus a bot? Well, the difference is very, very simple. If something is rule-based, 1 plus 1 becomes 2, we are trying to use bots and RPAs. But then if 1 plus 1 becomes 2 when it's sunlight, 1 plus 1 becomes 3 if it's winters, 1 plus 1 becomes -1 if it's rainy, that means some kind of human judgment is involved. And that's where AI comes in picture. The simple rule, if something that you're automating is known by your fingers, use minibots and RPA. And something that you're automating is using your brain, use artificial intelligence. And that's what the rule-based and judgment-based that you see over here looks about. Now in today's session, we are going to focus more on analytics side and artificial intelligence side. And these are the 2 big things that are happening. Maybe in some other session, if time permits, we'll talk about how to identify RPAs and bots and what kind of different projects we can do and how fast we can make it happen. But that's for some other day. Today, from this roadmap, the digital transformation roadmap, we are going to focus on 2 key components. Now we're going to look at the entire kind of a business intelligence that we're trying to create in Conifer's world. And what we're creating is something that is replicable to almost every industry, every organization within a healthcare segment. When we talked about analytics, a lot of people confuse analytics by thinking, oh, I'll put my digital Excel and I'll try to run some kind of a segments and I try to understand how is X is equal to Y or what is the function looking like. But today, the entire business intelligence or analytics has moved to the next step. There are four different types of analytics available today. One is descriptive analytics, which talks about why and what has happened. It's kind of a more of a historical, reactive way of looking at data and say, this is my data, what is it telling me, what has happened? Diagnostics is going a layer further and saying why it happened. And then predictive is more about, we start putting our data, we look at the past few months trend, few years trend, we start modeling and we start predicting. We start saying, oh, you do this, this is going to happen. You do this, this is going to happen. Your thought process completely change. Now you're not doing reactive, you're trying to become more proactive. And then the last one is prescriptive, where you start going and dictating. You start going and saying that based on data, this is what I should be doing. Think of the application, guys, when you're looking from a healthcare segment perspective, the claims, the dispute, the denials. If we start putting the right analytics for us, what we are doing, we are not only understanding why it happened, we are also trying to predict a pattern and say how it can be prevented and how can we bring those denials down? How can we get our entire cash flow back on track and how can we get maximum things out of it? They all work together. And again, as I said, some of these things are not like complementary, they are supplementary to each other. So we have to ensure what we need and how we pick it together. At Conifer, we are developing our entire business core BI tool to see how do we get our predictive and prescriptive together and create a future looking model for us. We have enough data, now we are putting the entire effort and our initial estimate says, if we get it right, a 37% reduction in manual effort and an 11% increase in cash collection are the possible outcomes that can be created by a proper application of analytics. Now, the question that you're going to ask me is, Praveen, how is it going to happen? Is it that straight and easy? Well, the answer is it's not straight and easy, but it's not impossible. If you see on the same slide, guys, I'm going to put together my descriptive and diagnostics, the first two stages which tells me what happened and why it happened. And we're putting a complete micro strategy to look at our entire data, putting some kind of visual dashboards, putting some kind of data deep dives and to see what exactly is happening on this side. And while we are collecting tons of data here, it is going to get processed through a cloud-based data service workbench, which is going to be my advanced and invisible AI coming into the picture, along with predictive and prescriptive analytics. Now, some of these things takes time. It's not kind of a snap of a finger and we say world is going to change. It's going to happen, but what we need is a structural approach and how do we make it happen for us. Eventually, we have to create some kind of a data warehouse where we can host the trillions of data points that is getting generated. We put some kind of a cloud or a Hadoop, which is going to do all my analytics for it and put some kind of integration for us. Technically, in simple words, we have to start looking for our outliers and seeing how are things not making sense and what can we do about it. If you look at a couple of more things, we are trying to automate all the routine business tasks. Anything which is manual, is repetitive in nature, is looking for some kind of consolidation can be automated. We're trying to put our remote workforce management and we're trying to understand how we're going to go and maximize that entire stuff. Putting real-time measurement for productivity and quality and then analyzing it to see how do we put workflows and improve our overall performance. So technically we are triangulating it from different perspectives by putting a structure from a bots perspective, robots coming into the picture, RPAs, putting some kind of analytics, and putting tighter controls around our workforce to see how do we take this entire stuff to the next level. A lot of action happening, but what's important for you is, and again, I'm going to go back on this slide. You don't have to worry if you don't do prescriptive and predictive as of today, but start focusing on these two sides. A descriptive and diagnostics is much cheaper as compared to predictive and prescriptive because those two require high-end modeling. Start with descriptive. Sometimes people ask me, Praveen, how can we start collecting data? And well, that's a kind of a big problem we are facing today because in healthcare team, so much data is generated, but because most of the systems that we use are legacy, we do not know how to manipulate or how to get the data in our hands and take it forward. And therefore, it becomes extremely important that we identify the metrics that we want to choose. We start looking at the business outcomes that we want to drive and do a kind of a reverse calculation. Descriptive and diagnostics are the first core elements you have to start understanding what your data looks like and how can you understand what is happening, the reason behind your data, the reason behind high level trends. And if you cannot do for all the trillions of the data that you're looking at it, pick your metrics, pick your business side and say, this is what I'm going to focus. And for a small portion, maybe I need to have some kind of a data scientist or a data analyst who can really work with me on this. Some of these are specialist function guys, require advanced analytics. Some of them might require machine learning also. And therefore, it's important that we as a team start building our repositories around it. I'm not going to say that people like me are key, but we need a people who understand the entire pattern, who can create an architecture for us, and who can say how the data is going to flow from different directions. And therefore, if you guys can start looking into these two parameters as a starting point before you go to predictive, that's a big win. I'm not expecting after today's session that you go back and say we'll start doing it. But after today's session, start focusing on this side and saying how the things are getting connected to each other and what can we do about it. Analytics is a very important and visual tool. So I'll go back over here and I say it's more important that whatever analytics you are creating gives you some kind of insights that you can go and apply, because otherwise it's a waste of time for all of us. I'll take a pause for analytics, guys, and I'll quickly move to something else which is equally more exciting, because I know we have got a very small time frame with us today, only like 15-20 minutes with me. So I'm going to talk about something very, very interesting and exciting, and we call it Conifer Core. Now that's our way of looking at an artificial intelligence. Now, some of you always ask me this question and say, Praveen, and some of you might be thinking that what is the AI going to do for us and how is it going to be different from a RPA kind of a concept? The simplistic way of looking at artificial intelligence, guys, is artificial intelligence is something where we got a software that is self-learning. It is a software like if you make something which is only rule based, remember the example I gave, 1 plus 1 becomes 2, you use an RPA. But sometimes 1 plus 1 is not going to be 2, it's going to be 2.5 or 2.6 or 2.8 depending on situation. What are those situations? We have to identify, and we have to tell our program that you have to start reading those situations. You have to start identifying those situations. And that's where the entire beauty of artificial intelligence comes together. Artificial intelligence describes a collection of multiple technologies. It's not a single software program. It's a lot of technologies, including your RPAs, including your text analytics, visual analytics, that you're going to put together, and you're enabling your machines to sense, comprehend, act, and learn. Think about it. Sensing like humans, comprehending like humans, acting and learning like humans, and then trying to solve for it. And that's why the entire concept of machine learning comes in, because these machines are interacting with us, absorbing information from us. While observing, they are making their own patterns and they're learning to avoid those mistakes in future. And therefore, they not only perceive the world by sensing it, and there are different parameters of sensing it. They can look at text processing, computer vision, audio processing, multiple ways of understanding what's happening in the external world. They also analyze whatever they observe, they start analyzing and forming a pattern, which is through your comprehension. That's where natural learning process and knowledge representation comes in picture. And the last is, while they're absorbing the data, they're also trying to make some informed decisions. They start acting and they start suggesting. Again, the entire concept of AI, the way we are built is, it's going to be in tandem with humans. It's not going to replace humans. It's going to take away all the low end stuff that doesn't require complex judgment from human brain to a machine brain. And eventually humans are still going to control it. The reason I want to share this slide, guys, is because you all have to understand how AI works. And once you start looking at it, you start seeing what kind of RPA can be converted back into AI and how can we really enhance our skill set by making them sense, comprehend, and act. Now, on the same lines, it's extremely important that to understand that like a successful mechanic, he has got different tools. Artificial intelligence has also got its own toolbox. There are different level of strengths and capabilities available today that we can use. If you look around it, we got text analytics, research assistance, image analysis, virtual, robotics, multimedia, and a lot more. What's more commonly used is text analytics. So whenever we get any unstructured data, we get AI through text analytics, and that really helps us to understand some unstructured data and the pattern underlying. We use a lot of image analysis. Image analysis is nothing else when we get a JPEG or a PDF kind of setup. how we scan that document, and how we pick the keywords, and we can take it forward from there. Think about if we are looking for a classic segment of a healthcare industry, a lot of time our people spend so much of time reading PDFs or JPEGs or looking at images and trying to extract that information. A classic RPA or robotics is failing in that stage because the formats are not consistent, and therefore something like image analysis becomes a key for us. Looking into the entire coding setup, we are reading medical records to extract some information to create codes. Something kind of an image analysis based artificial intelligence can do that job for us. And therefore we will get some kind of a trigger and say, this is the outcome looks like, are you good, sign it off, takes away all the manual effort and improve our efficiency. Text analytics, image and video are the three most commonly used in our segments, followed by RPA, which is kind of a separate pattern altogether. What I'm going to also recommend to all of you is, it's extremely important that you understand the tools that are available. But the common mistake that we all make is we are so infatuated with the tools that sometimes we pick a tool and we try to force fit. And we say, oh, I have an image analysis AI available, I will make it happen. That's the wrong way of doing it. And therefore, I'm recommending straight away saying that first, you have to identify your problem, create a solution. And then once you know what exactly is your problem and the recommended solution with the process experts, then you get the right tool to solve for it. Don't do the other way around, that you get a tool and then you try to identify a problem that's going to match it. That's a recipe for disaster. Predicting denials is one area where a lot of AI intervention is happening today, and I'm going to show you kind of a couple of more details around it, how we are trying to solve for it. It's a big major cause, any denial, guys, this is a kind of an interesting analogy over here. Every denial, every claim denial that we get costs us $25. And guess what? If you are looking for a 15 to 20 denials in a month, that cumulative cost with all the additional work is around $4,500. Look at the amount of money that we are paying and the amount of effort it takes for us. And it's all happening because if you just scratch the surface, you will realize that it's all happening because there's a lot of human errors and manual effort involved. And those human errors are causing all the denials at some point of time in the value chain. How do we prevent it? Well, AI can be successfully leveraged if we can train our model and can put some kind of an AI filter when the data is getting submitted. And they will not only start identifying and picking some patterns and saying, oh, these are the possible claims that can go for denials, or these have the higher probability of denials. Can we do some fixation at the time of submission itself? A lot of work that needs to be done to train our engines because we are talking about trillions of data. But the machine learning that we're looking at really helps us to create those walls, the sieves that's going to filter what's coming to us, putting some kind of flagging method and telling us exactly where we can go wrong and how can we go wrong and how can we prevent that by acting proactively. The entire concept is built upon how do we eliminate our errors, how do we reduce our inefficiencies, how do we take out this entire NVA and all the low-hanging fruits. All the things that can be taken care by AI can be done by them. My last slide on this piece will be, as I said, Conifer Core is what we are trying to create at Conifer. And this is kind of a proprietary platform where we are trying to use our entire machine learning, natural learning programs and bots as one component. We're trying to bring the entire predictive analytics model, which is going to help us identify what are the different factors we need to focus to get our cash flow back on track. And then in together tandem, how to create some actionable insights on the last bottom. Actionable insights that can be used by business to take it forward. And then, yes, we are more focused on RCM side of it and the value-based client services. We're looking at the entire end-to-end spectrum of patient services, client revenue integrity, AR management, and finance managed care. Now the concept, and as I said, this is all work in progress, guys. This is what I'm showing you is the work that we've done in the last few weeks, actually. We're trying to put the entire story. A few months back, we started the entire journey. The idea is that as we go forward, we start developing them into the full-blown processes and we start giving some results and share more collective stories with you. The key part, again, the learning from this session, if you really want to take back today is, remember that there is a sequential approach for your digital transformation. You can't run that sequence by saying, I'll start with AI. Maybe you have to start with bots. Look at your need. Look at what you really want to fix and then identify the tool that's going to fix you. If you're really interested in investing in analytics, start with descriptive, start with diagnostics. They are cheaper, very high end, and will really help you to enhance your capacity utilization and make you highly efficient. And then you can move towards predictive and prescriptive, which is high end, costly analytics. But again, they are available in the market and you can develop on your own. And the most important part, AI, well, always understand the need for AI. Every solution doesn't need an artificial intelligence. What it needs is a solution which could be more like an RPA, a high-end RPA that can have a standard structure to convert your story. But again, AI advisors are available, and I told you, most commonly used are image analytics, especially in healthcare segment, where you can apply them and you can extract a lot of relevant data from an image and apply an RPA to study it. Identify your problem, and as I said, I'm sure this is not going to be the last session that we're going to talk about, but as we go further, we'll start building more and more story around our entire Conifer piece. Not only from Conifer piece, I'll be more than happy to share all the learnings, best cases, and kind of projects that we're doing, the practices that can be replicated with a larger group. Conifer Health Solutions, I'm going to share you with a video now that talks about the Conifer Core and how it's actually getting, and the kind of work that we're doing, how it's talking to all of you. I hope you can hear the volume, guys.
Today, as much as 3% of net patient revenue is put at risk due to denials. That's $30 million for a $1 billion health system. This is a hard pill to swallow when about 90% of denials are preventable and most are recoverable. Preventing and managing denials is not easy. It takes time and resources to hold payers accountable, resolve systemic issues, and automate what's been a traditionally manual process. At Conifer Health Solutions, we understand the challenges and have created a technology-forward process fueled by revenue cycle
I think we lost the audio on that one.
Do we have audio there, guys?
There's no audio.
Oh, really? Hold on, let me share it again. Thank you. Just a second. Let me share it again. Maybe something wrong with the sharing part of it. Because I earlier checked there was audio.
It started with audio, but then it went away.
Okay, let me double check then. I think it will work now. Maybe something went wrong. I'm really sorry, guys. It's your audio now.
As much as 3% of net patient revenue is
Yes.
denials. That's $30 million for a $1 billion health system. This is a hard pill to swallow when about 90% of denials are preventable and most are recoverable. Preventing and managing denials is not easy. It takes time and resources to hold payers accountable, resolve systemic issues, and automate what's been a traditionally manual process. At Conifer Health Solutions, we understand the challenges and have created a technology-forward process fueled by revenue cycle experts that prevents denials, alleviates reimbursement delays, and avoids the costly and time-consuming appeals process. It starts with Conifer Core, our technology suite that integrates directly with your systems and uses data to power your business in a way that helps prevent and manage denials. Our framework is built to capture all critical events in the patient encounter. We collect indicators to track key activities, such as insurance verification, eligibility, inpatient notification, clinical submission, authorization, and coding through claim submission and payment. By marrying the patient encounter events to the claim to the payer response, we are able to create a denial process report card, which enables structured feedback methods and allows us to target specific opportunities with people, process, and technology. This leads to strong relationships with heavy engagement and mutual accountability with measurable outcomes. For the small percentage of claims that are denied, Conifer Core, using machine learning technology, evaluates payer correspondence to identify trends and determine rule steps. Reviewing against more than 100 data elements, Conifer Core fingerprints claims using AI into like issues or categories, and then automatically packages and sends over specialized work lists to experts for validation. The appeals are then electronically packaged and sent in bulk so that, for example, 500 issues become one issue and can be automatically appealed. Those that can't are electronically sent to our payer escalation team to quickly process. All are then added to our continuous feedback loop for future prevention. Conifer's industry-exclusive second pass no-touch denial technology means more accurate claims and fewer future denials. Using AI, automation, and experts to manage denials and appeals, Conifer accelerates reimbursement, recovers lost revenue, and improves payer accountability for our healthcare clients.
So I think that's all from my side, guys. I think it was a very quick talk, and I know that we have got a lot of questions. We can talk about them as we move in the session today. But the key was, so that's all from my side. Back to you, Kathy.
I think it's back to me, Praveen. So thank
Back
you
to Randy. Sorry for
very
that.
much for yeah. Thank you very much for providing that roadmap, and I think some of the key insights in terms of where some of the value can be derived. So I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation in our panel discussion. So leading us into that discussion, I'd like to introduce two additional panelists. And I'll introduce each panelist, and then they can give their kind of opening statement and share with the group, and then we'll get into an open panel discussion and try to answer some of your questions that you may still have in the process. As Praveen has indicated, this is it's a complex subject, but we'll hopefully get you started down that road and down that process. So for my first panelist, I'd like to introduce Sunil Gupta. Sunil is a seasoned professional in the area of strategic design and implementation and program management and data analytics and corporate real estate and global sourcing. He's currently the head of strategic operations of the Philippine Center for Cognizant Technical Solutions, and in his role, he provides local team leadership for steering complex cross-functional strategic programs and leading corporate real estate strategy for the center. Prior to moving to the Philippines in 2013, he was a leading program management office technology consulting unit in Cognizant. He's a published contributing author of one of the best-selling books on operational excellence titled The Path, and also several studies and articles, including the case management study on the impact of COVID in the corporate real estate. He is a graduate of mechanical engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology, and he's also very passionate about getting involved in community welfare and is an active volunteer. So I'll let you give some opening remarks, Sunil. So over to you.
Thanks a lot, Randy, for that introduction. And good afternoon, everyone. It's very nice to be here. And Praveen has already set a very good context on how various components of analytics and automation and artificial intelligence come together. So what I would just like to touch upon a few things. One is these technologies are very pervasive. They are already touching our life in multiple dimensions, and healthcare is one of the very significant one. While we realize, in some cases, we may not even realize by just carrying our phones and having sometimes consciously taken choices to wear smart gadgets like watches, we are, become a part of ecosystem of healthcare where our personal data is very much utilized for our well-being and at times just being monitored for providing us insights about how we could control our lifestyle goals. And this leads to a couple of other things. This data is very useful and it is vital for our own well-being as long as we know what we want to do with it. but that's not always going to be so. Our data is shared across product companies, across multiple platforms, and that brings out a question about data privacy when we get into analytics and artificial intelligence in healthcare. There are so many entities involved. How is our data getting controlled? As an individual, we may not have full visibility to. So while there's a lot of positive side to it, we need to be little cautious of that. And as a provider, as a enabler of healthcare systems, we should always take care of those aspects which will protect privacy of the people involved. And second is ethical aspects. Now, when it comes to human being, there could be a error, and then obviously we can attribute it to a person and then say that so and so did an error, and hence let's look at correcting that person by training or by whatever remedials can be done. What happens when a machine commits an error? Who would be accountable to it is one question which often comes up in AI world. And secondly, machines are algorithms are going to help us in making certain decisions. So ultimately, though they may have a bias because of the data they carry, and that could result in a human being sometime making a judgment which may not be most appropriate for the situation in hand. So those things will continue to be tackled, and I think technology is maturing. What could happen today was not possible certain years ago. So we would have more interesting developments in field of AI, and voice holds a very interesting aspect also. Earlier a lot of things had to be typed and written when interfacing with technology devices. Now voice itself has become a very interesting interface for technology. So these things will help professionals in healthcare industry, and at the same time, bring out those aspects which will require cross-functional collaboration and working in a very careful manner. Yeah. So with Randy, that I think we can take it ahead. Yeah.
Okay, great, Sunil. Thank you very much for those opening remarks. Looking forward to getting in our panel discussion. But first, our second panelist, I'd like to introduce Michelle Alarcon. She is an analytics practitioner since 1999 and is a founder of an analytics consulting firm called Z-Lift Solutions. They enable organizations on analytics and starting to building roadmaps and implementation and enablement. She organized our user group in the Philippines, and that's a tech community, promotes awareness and the use of open source programming language R among analytics practitioners. She's also been an advocate of analytics for the masses and is a board trustee member of the Analytics Association of the Philippines. She's a graduate in statistics from the University of Philippines, and she is the head of learning for the Women Foundation, a nonprofit organization that provides free training and data science to the underprivileged women. So, Michelle, a few opening remarks from you.
Thank you, Randy. It's great to be here. This is my first time to be part of the HIMAP conference, and very excited to share what we have been doing as well with at the AAP. So wearing my shirt, just a promotional ad, shameless plug. AAP is the Analytics Association of the Philippines, and the reason why I've also been invited here by the HIMAP is that we would like to make sure that we communicate the same message that we have been doing for the past, I think, 3 years already, to the HIMAP Association, to your association, to the healthcare industry, that analytics is it's not meant to be this elitist technology, but it's meant to be for the masses. It's meant to be used by everyone, and we would like to enjoin. Everyone needs to understand first what it is. Not be too excited with the tech behind it, but really have an understanding of how, the methodology, and then defining the problem, and then realizing the benefits, right? So technology aside, of course, there's a lot of tools out there, but at the AAP, what we are envisioning is really to have this ecosystem in the Philippines where we together in this ecosystem, we are upskilling the whole country when it comes to analytics talent, applications to, anything that touches our lives as citizens, as consumers, as practitioners, and as human beings. So this ecosystem is, I'd like to start my opening statement with that, because having that perspective from the AAP representing the industry sector, the private sector, we are just one part of that ecosystem. So all the private sectors, including all the healthcare industries who are in the call today, working with the public sector, working with the academe, working with other associations and organizations. Imagine if there is that free-flowing and seamless collaboration among all these entities, such that analytics is, in terms of the supply side in the academe, we have enough supply to meet the demands of the industry of the academe, also, and in the public sector and private sector. So that is what we are aiming to achieve at the AAP. And because my perspective is coming from the private sector, where at ZLift Solutions, I'm heading a team that implements analytic solutions, not just for healthcare but other industries. I would like to share with everyone that it is in fact implementable. Analytics and AI are implementable in the local healthcare industry. It has been done. My team has been engaged with a lot of projects with visionary executives and management and in among healthcare companies. And just to name a few of these, what we call use cases or applications, and how they have benefited from analytics. So starting with very, let's just say descriptive analytics, as Praveen has introduced to us. So looking at the profiles of the patients, and not just looking at the demographics, but also particularly if they are either paying via their HMOs, they're paying out of pocket, and for each of these healthcare companies, are they actually servicing their target markets, right? So not necessarily just on locations where maybe their institutions or facilities are, but also making sure that they're fully aware of what the healthcare needs are of these serviceable markets. So for example, it's particular to a socioeconomic profile that they would like to reach, and then be more service oriented. Are they actually capturing the right profiles and providing the corresponding services that are needed by their facilities? And then related to that is, of course, looking if they have patient satisfaction. The satisfaction factors could be coming from, as we have studied for one of the healthcare companies, are they just related to just the sophistication of the technologies or the facilities that are available? Is it the service workers, the healthcare workers, the quality of the service they provide, or is it purely just on the price? Just looking at maybe the typical outpatient service menu, and then maybe of course the inpatient services are different, right? But in some cases, particularly for this the study that we have done, where we have also applied analytics, is if the patients sometimes turn out to be dissatisfied, then you want to further understand how that is so. Are they just coming from the satisfaction is just coming from certain patient profiles or segments, and then maybe there is that other insight that we may glean from these data points, which is if they're still able to recommend us, right? So this is one of another possible endpoint for studying or applying analytics for patient satisfaction data. But two more strategic applications or use cases of analytics that we have also done are, one is on resource optimization, and then the other one is on strategic network planning. I'll talk about these very briefly, but I really want to share these with you because I want to impart that here locally in the Philippines, it is possible, right? So on resource optimization, we looked at there was a study that we did, an analytic study that we did, where we're looking for the optimal nurse to patient ratio. And this is primarily maybe something that's unique also in the Philippines, that we're really always, we always have that impression that we don't have enough nurses or healthcare workers because they tend to leave the country and look for other opportunities abroad. So how is this affecting us? And obviously we can't just look at one healthcare services provider alone, right? But looking at it more holistically. But even, before going to that level, it's really looking at that optimal number where, each hospital maybe needs to revisit in terms of the allocation of the right set of skill sets or seniority for healthcare workers. So that is one application of analytics, particularly on optimization. We also had a use case that we delivered for a hospital, and they were basically looking at, where is it best or better to invest in, given the data and then historical trends on the patients and then the services they avail for these hospitals. The decision can be made if they would rather open a new wing, for example, for maternity wards, or should they expand their cancer institute, for example. So it's not necessarily a straightforward computation for maybe capacity planning, but looking at historical data and putting in other factors such as the recent cases during the pandemic, particularly. These obviously are new data points that should be considered in making these types of decisions. So there's also related to that is, how do you now also allocate more efficiently the time and resources you have in terms of the specialists, right? If let's say for very specialized skill sets of our healthcare workers, they need to be offloaded from their basic routinary tasks, and AI and maybe RPA even at the start, right? These can be mapped to how they're actually doing it, and eventually offloading them to the real the real work that requires specialized skill sets. So last but not the least is on strategic network planning, and this is more particularly for retail pharmacies that we have worked with, and then they were asking us how best to strategize on setting up or putting up new branches, with primary objective of being closer to their target market, to the market that they want to service. So getting the different criteria on their target market and overlaying that in a geospatial visualization where they can easily see and make decisions on where to put up a site, basically site location. And then related to that is, what would be the right product mix that will match the requirements of this target market, and eventually prevent out of stock, which is also one of the important problems to solve in terms of inventory management for this type of healthcare company. So local implementations for analytics, they exist, they have been done, but what were the challenges? And later on in the panel discussion, maybe there will also be more things that may come up, but just 3 points that maybe I'd like to service this early is, of course, we always say that there's a challenge in data collection, but particularly for healthcare, for the healthcare industry, where it is like any other service industry, the very important data points are not captured because it's about people. It's about the people transaction, so to speak. So one example is the actual tasks and maybe even attendance of our healthcare workers. When you want to allocate properly the time that they spend in 8 hours in a hospital, maybe more, how do you actually perform your model, or develop your models without the granularity of maybe the type of tasks or the acuity levels of the patients they serve, without those details, right? So it's more of an afterthought when they capture these data points. And in our case, it was only during the project that they realized these things that they needed to be captured. And one very important as well, which we also noticed or observed in the BPO industry in general, is that data is not really being captured on in terms of the background, or you can imagine it like a CV or the resume of our healthcare workers, the experience that they have, and what particular specializations they from their application to the company, up to the performance management, up to even the promotions and all that stuff, up to when they leave the company. These are not usually being tracked or captured, and these are important when we talk about matching the right skill sets of healthcare workers, and looking at maybe opening or sourcing new talent for our new skill sets. And then I think this is also mentioned earlier on regarding text analytics applications. So many of the data that we have in healthcare industry are unstructured. Of course, ICD-10 not always structured in this case when it's applied to systems, and it takes weeks to get encoded. So they're typically not analyzed. But then there's data being collected or not collected, and there's also understanding of the data. So I'd like to put a pun on it, like we're not caring in the healthcare industry. We're not caring enough for the data that we are capturing. So that's in terms of quality and completeness. And as Sunil has also alluded to, how do we apply the ethics framework on the data that we're collecting. So last but not the least, and a usual challenge is the talent. So very few are practicing analytics because, to be frank, it's not really taught in school. So data, data appreciation, data awareness, even it's really maybe just after graduation, after high school. There's also a mismatch of jobs and also therefore expectations, because these job roles are new and you're usually misinterpreted and hard to define. So let me close by saying that at the AAP, I want to go back to that. Part of the work that we have started to do is to come up with a professional maturity model for analytics practitioners. So there are different tracks, and this is our way of laying out the foundation for anyone who would like to develop their skill sets on analytics. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Michelle, for the insights and your passion in the data analytics side. And I'd like to kind of piggyback on one of the comments that you made, and maybe start with throwing this out to Praveen, is that we've, I think, talked about a number of good use cases in terms of what we've approached, but also it'd be interesting to see what you've seen on your journey at Conifer in terms of where not to apply it just yet. We talked about some of the challenges with it, and you gave the examples in terms of your claims processing. But what have you looked at? There are areas that maybe aren't ready, or the tools or the technology aren't ready. Maybe you could share some of your experiences, the analysis that you did at Conifer.
Absolutely, Randy. One of the key things I wanted to share with everyone, guys, is that, and Randy, that's kind of a very, very interesting segment, because we all want to go and talk about automations and AIs. But the reality is most of the processes, especially in healthcare industry, are using legacy processes, legacy systems. The data is there, but it's stuck somewhere. How to get the data together, how to get extractions possible. Some of the companies are still using DOS-based systems. And therefore, it's very difficult for us to think and say, oh, we can go and quickly overlay our structure by putting an AI or a robotics. This entire industry needs to be rethought. Today, when I'm looking at processes, Randy, there are so many processes where there's lack of standardization. you get like 36 different states giving us 36 different kind of forms. You can't put an AI or a RP on top of it. There's a major chunk of business that really needs to be standardized, streamlined, and requires kind of a support. For example, if I'm doing at patient services today, the patient requests that we are getting are in such a varied forms that no AI can work for us. And therefore, the first stage is to get those things streamlined and to bring to a certain nominal number. Same thing happens for analytics. We are talking about analytics. So denials was the first big thing we picked up because denials, we still have got a lot of streamlined data. But guess what? Denials going to clinical side of it, we're still struggling because those clinical records are not clearly established or they're not in a kind of a format that I can convert into some kind of intelligence. So to give the long, it's kind of a complex question, Randy. My answer will be there are so many areas where we are not ready, and therefore it's very important that we go back to our basics, fix our process, drive the value of standardization, streamline the process. And those like processes are happening across healthcare segment, even in Conifer, and I'm sure in a lot of other industries where we see a huge level of variation. Unless we cut down that variation, whatever automation we're bringing in won't be immediate success.
Great, thank you, thank you. Sunil, you have anything you would want to add or share to that in terms of the limitations and things that you may be steering away from, or specific challenges that you faced? I think you might be on mute. Or we may have lost him. All right.
Difficulty in unmuting himself. I think he was there.
One more time, Sunil.
Sunil, can you hear us?
All right. We'll see if we can get that fixed. I'll go back to kind of the use case scenario, and that seems to be a lot of the common questions we're getting from the group, and it's trying to get their mind around, where this might apply. And I think we've covered a lot of practical areas already that I think demonstrate how it's being used today in your own real operation. It's not just a theoretical one. And I'll go back to you to maybe take a look at what are your other priorities. I mean, you started about talking about the claims process, and obviously there's a good economic incentive to do that. What's next on your radar and on your list?
Randy, I think, as I said, Conifer is mainly focused on RCM side of it. We are getting a niche profile for us. One of the key aspects is to look at the entire end-to-end cycle time, right from the word scheduling to the time dollars are collected. So the entire focus, and as a kind of a transformation journey that I'm building up right now, is focused on how do we cut down all the levers that are really eating into my cycle time. When I look at the entire account receivable, there's a huge cash flow that is getting stuck, and denials is just one component of it. The entire cash application process today is highly manual. And why is it manual? Because we're still going with the same 1960s logic of getting to an invoice and a statement, and we're trying to match and do auto match. Why? Because they're not in a standard format. Kind of a classical journey for a robotics and an AI. If we do that, the key concept here will be in terms of your efficiency gain. At least 35 to 40% process can be straight away eliminated, and the efficiency can be enhanced. If you go back to the other side of the table, we are talking about revenue integrity, where people are reading medical records and trying to code. Well, again, you can have some kind of AI working over there and robotics working over there to extract data. I think really the key portion that we all have to understand is it's not about the use of AI or analytics. It's how do you want to use it and where you want to use it. So in my life right now, my key priorities for the next 3 to 6 months is to lay out clearly the structural things that we're getting into. And that involves all the portions of your account receivable, right from the time that you're looking at your cash applications, collections, your declines. Then you go back to your coding side. You're looking at how to automate the coding side of it. and then entire financial clearance process that we're running at this stage. How do we really get a touch point and put a lot of analytics there? The concept again is, do we want to become reactive when things go wrong, we run after it, we try to fix it? Or do we really want to stay ahead of the curve and see how the proactive side happens? So a lot of action happening,
Yep.
Randy. And as I said, it's kind of an early stage for me to lay out all the cards on the table. But as we keep on talking every quarter, I can provide some kind of more interesting stuff and see how things are coming together and forming a block. And that's kind of a journey that we're taking on.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I think this is, I think the start of the conversation. I think with the interest that we've had and the complexity of the discussions, looking forward to going deeper with this, and I'm sure there will be a lot of interest, and I think and follow up to this. Thanks for sharing your insights. I would just maybe see if Sunil is back out there. You there, Sunil?
Yeah, Randy, thanks. I
He's
had
here
to
now.
issues. I'm putting
Okay.
my camera off because of some
Yeah,
connectivity issues.
yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So I
no
think your
worries.
question was, what are we keeping away from trying?
Yes, yes.
One thing is that we are right now trying to implement tools on back office side, the things which can help the work of our teammates who service our clients in terms of either claim processing or addressing their clients' post onboarding queries, and touching something on live transactions which are related to direct care and all is not yet, I think, happening. It will take some time. Yeah. So a lot of work can be done in automation for supporting back office work.
Yep.
That's sentiment great. Analysis and task automation.
Okay, very good. Thanks. I'll throw this one to Michelle, as you touched on briefly at the end of your opening statements about trying to get practitioners and education, and the fact that we may have students or some academe on this call. What are you seeing in terms of the development path, in terms of the curriculum and whatnot that you're working with from AAP to try to get the right programs in place? And I know from a BPO industry, this is something that's been going on for years to make sure that we have the skill sets and the education that's in place. Maybe you could share some of the things that AAP is doing in that regards to make sure we have a pipeline of talent.
Right. Thank you for that question, Randy, and then whoever asked in the audience. We have started to work with DOST as well as the Development Academy of the Philippines to put together this curriculum that has started to offer free scholarship to anyone who would be interested to take up a data career, not necessarily just data science. And this is through Project Sparta. So look it up. I can also send the link via chat later on, but this particular project its aim is to produce 30,000 new jobs, new practitioners in the data industry. So if you actually start to log in right now in Sparta and just to inquire, you will see that there are different tracks for you to choose from. So there is the data engineer track, there's the data scientist track, data steward, and analytics manager. So this particular this particular framework is actually the one that we worked with particularly for Project Sparta. This is available if you're a member of the AAP, so you will know more about it. Actually, we're also promoting this framework where you have different job roles for analytics and what the required competencies are to build for each of these career paths, because they are different, right? So for example, just a quick one, a data engineer's role is really more focused on managing the data, or what we call building that data pipeline. And then the data scientist's role is to create those statistical models, for example, for prescriptive or predictive capabilities. And the data steward is really looking after the accountability on and responsibility to make sure that the data the quality of the data is in place, working with, the different owners of the data in the organization as well, working with the DPO. These are obviously, different types of skill sets. There's also the business analyst who is in charge of mainly coordinating with, the decision makers and in terms of what type of insights would be more practical to implement and take actions on as soon as we have the results from the analytics models. And then the analytics manager is also works something like a project manager to deliver these analytics projects end to end, and ensuring that this is also deployed or operationalized, and it is sustainable within the organization. So for that particular inquiry in terms of how do I get started in the analytics, having an analytics career or analytics related career, I would suggest that, first of all, there's no undergrad for it. Now, people may say that you should be a statistics major or you should be a computer science major. We have proof working with, wearing my FTW Foundation hat for the Women Foundation. We even have, history majors or music majors even getting interested in the field of analytics and data science. And, because the technology and all the tool sets are, very, widely available these days, with the online courses like Coursera and, Project Sparta, as well as providing the MOOCs. It's not really that particular discipline that which is, first and foremost you need to build on. It's in fact that methodology of knowing or defining what do you want to know, just like what Praveen mentioned, right? What is the problem to be solved here? And then working backwards, then I find the right tool sets to answer that problem. So that is, I would say, that's analytical thinking, that's critical thinking, that's resourcefulness, creativity. All these are, what we call right now is just 21st century skills, which is imperative to have. Unfortunately, it's just a bucket of, a title, but at least it's not called soft skills anymore, right? Because there's nothing soft about it. But that is also what we want to promote at the AAP, that this framework is not just all about tools, it's not just all about the hard skills, but in fact, 21st century skills is, it has to be at the top.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll throw out one last question before we give a chance to everybody just to kind of give a quick summary and cap off anything you may have forgotten. But it's kind of back to the new normal, and I'll throw this out to the panel to maybe share any examples. But where we were a year ago and where we are today is fundamentally different. The world has changed, and has your opportunity or perspective in terms of analytics, in terms of AI, been impacted or affected at all? And what do you see, and how do you see that impacted, and what do you see going forward, if any, carryover from that? And I'll just throw that out to the group if anybody would like to comment on that.
Well, Randy, I'll go first on this. Last 1 year, I think the world has changed completely. It was kind of an unprecedented situation, and COVID not only shaded our life and changed it completely, but if you look at it from a digitization perspective, I have never seen any company, or the kind of companies that are jumping onto digitization wagon is amazing. Today, there are so many companies that they've realized that the kind of legacy processes that they're running with, which are manual, human dependent, it's not going to sustain in the kind of a situation that getting into pandemic kind of a level. So every company is more than happy to get into AI, analytics, robotics. And today, every company is open to it. Well, prior to joining Conifer in my earlier organization, there were so many clients who were not very keen on automations and digitization. But all of a sudden, with this pandemic coming in, overnight, they were into it. There were a lot of people, we got some OCRs deployed for them, and we said, guys, can you please start telling your vendors to start scanning those and sending it through OCRs to us, the digitized data. And that project was always like kind of a hanging because vendors were like not compliant. They said, we will only send the manual thing. We don't want to send you a scanned image. And the moment COVID happened, when everything stopped, guess what? Within a week, 90% of those vendors started using OCR and the solutions that we have given them because they realized if they send a kind of a hard copy, who's going to read it? All offices are closed. So I think the mindset change that happened during COVID was enormous. And people realized the threat that if something like this happens again, then what's going to happen? And therefore the dependency on manual or physical or hard copies or kind of entering data is getting away. People are opening up and saying, how do we really make the process independent of all this pandemic kind of issues, and how do we take it to the next level? So a significant investment is happening on AI, analytics, robotics, and you will just see that's going to increase as we go on, because this is going to help you not only reduce your costs, make you more efficient and effective in long term.
Thanks. That's a good key point, and I think the simple analogy would be the work from home, right? That was a lot of foot dragging that had been going on for years, and all of a sudden, there was no choice, right? We had to all be working from home in this model, so. That's the great insight. Any other anybody want to add another impact to kind of COVID in this discussion before we wrap up? Any other comment, Michelle or Sunil?
Right, I can comment just very shortly. Last year was, in fact, where we saw a lot of our clients really speed up the projects on data. Now it's been. They've been, as Praveen mentioned, it's kind of hanging there, and then suddenly, they want it done. And our insight to this is really, and we're talking about the local companies, small or big. It's they because they've been working from home, or most of the workforce are not in the physical stores and not in the physical branches interacting with their customers. The only way they will know how their business is doing is through data. So now they say, I gotta have it, right? I gotta see it. I gotta understand what's happening, because I don't have the actual feel of what's happening. And then they realize, oh, this is much better, because now I have a bigger picture. I have a more holistic picture of what's happening in sales, what's happening in my supply chain, and then they can put all these things together. So I think can also. I mean, I'm pretty sure the others can also relate to that happening.
No, exactly. And I think to the comment that, once we got past the initial unknown and fear factor, it really became a catalyst for every industry, online payments, shopping online, everything else that, again, where you're finding excuses not to do it. So it's interesting to get your perspective. So in the interest of time, I would like to just give 1 minute to each of you to just give any final closing comments, and I'll hold you to the 1 minute. So I will red flag you with this. And seeing that Sunil's not in the picture, I'll offer him his first 1 minute summary, and then we'll just go to each of you as well to just give a 1 minute wrap up before we go to Jeff.
Sunil.
Over to you, Sunil. Yeah, Sunil. All right. We'll start with you, Praveen, and let you give a 1 minute wrap.
Well, I think my key message, guys, is that this is a great time for Philippines because healthcare industry is booming in. Globally with the COVID impact, every healthcare is trying to reduce their cost big time. Expect a lot of business moving towards Philippines, and that's a great opportunity for organizations like HIMAP. If we all can club our hands and thinking and share the best practices, we all can learn from each other. AI, analytics, robotics are going to be part of the journey. They are inevitable. And therefore we have to accept it. Great time, great kind of great opportunity for all of us. So let's get ready and make this next few years some amazing turnaround story for Philippines as a whole. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Praveen. And 1 minute for you, Michelle.
All right. Just one message is really more of a call to action to everyone. Seeing that, AI analytics, not just in the healthcare industry, it definitely benefits everyone, right? Not just during COVID, but this will be hopefully become a norm in terms of in technology. We hope this to be like a mandatory, not just a nice to have, right? But what we really lack, because I kind of harped on that, which is lacking talent, right? We need more people to actually be doing this, not just the high end stuff, which is on the sophisticated models, but just looking at the data, getting to having awareness on the basic ingredient to analytics, which is data. We just need more of these. And in fact, you will see later on that we would like to encourage companies to also start to hire from K to 12 graduates, because this is how basic it needs to be, right? And so I would like to make this, again, shameless plug, to join us at the AAP, where we are trying to build this ecosystem. It's just very few of us, together with Carlo, who is part of the HIMAP board. We need more people to make us to help us execute and make these things happen for the country. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. And I see we got Sunil back, so I'll give you a 1-minute summary, Sunil.
Yeah, you are asking, Randy, what has changed in last 1 year. So obviously things change for all of us. In terms of work, what we have seen is there's a lot of support needed for people working from home. And it has come out in two ways. One is on incidentally analytics side. We have been able to help them to provide with the tools and platforms which can help them in managing work a bit better. So even workforce automation related solutions have played a vital part in this year. And second is wellness. So it so happens that we are, while talking about healthcare sector, even for people working at home, has increased demand for telehealth and in general discussion about work-life balance and well-being. So I think healthcare sector would have a propelling demand also now to meet remote workers, healthcare needs, which are overall going to be quite different. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Sunil. So I'd like to thank all of our panelists for their contribution and participation to at least scratch the surface of this very complex subject. I think hopefully everybody has come away with a little broader perspective, kind of a framework, and the message that I think is loud and clear that it's real, it's there today, and it's going forward for sure. And I would like to then just turn it over to Jeff Williams to give us some closing remarks. Jeff?
Hey, Randy, thank you for that. Give me 1 second. I was so much good information. I'm not a very good typer, and I was seriously trying to type to keep up with you guys to capture what you guys are getting out there.
We'll go to a
but really, it's a very engaging. I'm sorry.
Nothing. Go ahead.
Very engaging and informative discussions, and hopefully, all of those in attendance found it as informative and as enlightening as I did. So, just a real big thank you to today's speakers, our main presenter, Praveen. I think you really did a very good job of taking a very complex subject and putting it in a nice, easy to understand format. And then for our panelists, Michelle and Sunil, the dedication that's coming out of you guys is just amazing. So, and then of course, our moderator extraordinaire, Randy. He did a good job of keeping the guys all on track. He was a taskmaster. I think he needed to be for that. And again, it was just really good information on some fascinating, if not somewhat terrifying topics. So let's take a minute and just go back, and I'd like to review over what was said. Like I said, I've just taken very extensive notes here. And as is my nature, I'll probably talk too much, but there's a lot to be said, kind of wrapping it up. Today's session, we discussed two topics that either terrify or excite you, and in a lot of cases, probably a little bit of both, right? Just depending on where you're at. We're way beyond the discussions of when AI made you think of the Terminator, as Praveen pointed out. Today, you're more likely to think of Alexa, right? Because that's your more in-your-face interaction with it. The initial concerns about computer intelligence taking all our jobs, I think, is to somewhat kind of soften, and we're taking a shift to no, AI is going to take away all the crappy mundane jobs, and it's going to allow us and provide us more interesting challenges and more opportunities, and then to be augmented by tools to make us even. Although that's what I was thinking, and then Praveen threw up a quote from Gartner there that told us it's going to take away all of our jobs again. So I don't know. I guess maybe we want to keep the fear alive in us. And then in analytics, it's interesting. Sorry for that. But in my mind, analytics has always been the kind of hidden in the corner, redheaded stepchild that no one really talks about. But it is key to everything we do. There is no AI, there is no machine learning, there is nothing without analytics and data to view it and how do you take it and utilize it. So, Michelle, very, very good information coming from you on that. So, again, thank you all for that. So, but we started out today, Roger came out with his opening message and he pointed out that while we've all worked very hard to increase the visibility of our sector, I think we need to be careful about what we wish for because COVID-19 has certainly put healthcare in the spotlight. And by extension, the Philippine support services that we provide. So the opportunities for us are larger than ever, but we're being forced out of our comfort zones and having to look at these scary technologies like AI and understand how do we properly look at data analysts and how do we make sure we're doing it ethically. I mean, that was brought up as well, too, some potential biases that may be in the models. Our moderator, Randy, he came out with a very bold statement. We have a data problem. And I'm glad that's kind of thrown out there because it is. We got too much of it, right? And there is such thing as too much of a good thing. And it's just not physically possible to do how we used to read books and to simulate data and do it in worksheets. Too much data, humans can't do it. We need these AI tools. We need these algorithms to kind of come in to help us make use of this data. Otherwise, it's just a big room full of clutter and it's useless, right? So we definitely need the tools if we're going to go forward with these kind of things. And he also brought up some of the challenges like the data silos, the data storage structure, and potential biases in the analysis. The silos, I think, is a go and again, when you deal with a lot of your clients, they've got some old antique system that was built probably in the 70s, and that's not exaggeration, right? And the thing's still running. And how do you get data out of it in a reliable, readable format, in a structured type format? I know that people look at AI as your answer to, oh, we can take unstructured data and make it usable. It's like, yes and no. You know, and there's some success with that, but it's certainly not the end all be all answer for it. You really still do need good structure around your data. Praveen, again, your top quote, I'm not going to repeat it because it's too scary for me that by 2030, 90% of our jobs will be replaced by smart machines. You know, my only argument to that, and I'll go ahead and I'll go on record disagreeing with Gartner, then who's paying the bills? Because to my knowledge, computers aren't paying for rent and they aren't buying cars and they aren't doing anything else. So if no one's paying the bills, that technology is going to stop real quick. Who's paying for it? So we have to work. That's how we buy all these things. But you did set the stage in regards to a realistic expectations on the goals for today's session. And while we didn't leaving this message as experts, I guarantee you I am definitely better educated. So I do thank you for that, Praveen. I think you did give a very good synopsis and kind of rounding it up for us. You also provide us with the evolutionary descriptions of the digital transformation journey. Again, made it very simple and easy to read, which is not an easy task because, as you pointed out, there's so many different factors and so many aspects to it. You also point out that the ROI potential is huge. If you can get from a descriptive to a prescriptive analytic process, that's what gets everybody hooked. But at the same point in time, you kind of followed up going, there's some pretty decent incremental ROIs too, going just from descriptive to diagnostic and then taking that into your, you know, so just follow it up the chain, take a realistic approach to it, I think is the point, right? And understand your tools and your limitations. I think that was another very good takeaway from what you said. Just because, hey, look, I went and bought this new fancy AI tool, and now I'm trying to take this beautiful screwdriver I just bought and wondering why it doesn't pound nails really well, right? I mean, it's just the wrong tool for the wrong application. And that's kind of the same thing you kind of do with this, right? Make sure the tool you got is right for what you need. And then we went off to our guest panelists. Unfortunately, Sunil, it started out great, but I don't know why we had some technology issues on here. I wish we could have got to keep it more in there. But I did catch out that I think you pointed out very clearly that technology is very pervasive. And to Randy's point earlier, smartwatches, you know, Fitbits, smart tennis shoes. I mean, everything's smart nowadays, I think. And it's all creating just mounds and mounds and mounds of data. So now how do we put the right tools in place and structures in place to make sure we utilize it and avoid biases and use it properly? And as Sunil pointed out, the onus is on us as industry leaders or as company runners to ensure that that data is safely stored, you know, confidentially accessed, ethically reviewed, and applied everything we kind of do to it. And these are not trivial, right? I mean, if you're doing these things, you can't just flippantly run it through and go, hey, look, and take a result. Do a critical think look on it, because sometimes, you know, again, it's very simple analysis can jump out at you. And then Michelle, I'm sorry, I'm not worthy. Everything they told me you've been doing, I always used to think I did a lot working for industry, and then You make me look like quite the slouch. You're very, very active, and that's exactly what we need, though, right? I mean, this is how we're going to be prepared for the future, and how do we get people's awareness up there where it needs to be? How do we make sure that you're working with the academia and we're setting a future? Because you can't do it all, right? You need those good people. And then the one thing you said that just impressed me the most, you don't need there is no undergraduate degree for data analytics. And I believe that about just about anything, really. If I need a person with creative thinking skills, and just an analytical mindset to say, listen, show me you're up for the challenge and let me give you a challenge, and then you can step up and you can do it. I'm not trying to discount college, but at the same point in time, I think analytics is a perfect one of saying there is no one particular degree for it. If you got the right mindset and you got the right coaches and mentors and educators, you can go places, right? So then we delved into your panel discussion. I think Randy had quite a few good questions. I'm not going to read them all off for you because I'm just basically reiterating everything. But I did like the aspect of, you asked, what are you guys doing, what is on your list of not to apply analytics to? And I thought that was good too, because we tend to fall in these buckets of everything. Analytics is your answer to everything, right? Like I said, I've got a hammer now. Everything looks like a nail, right? And how do I want to apply it to it? So analytics is a great and a very powerful tool, but what are these areas where you don't use it, and you can't use it in places when you don't have a good comfortable set on the structure of the data, the reliability of where the data came from, all these kind of things. So, and I know this from my own personal use and from others I've talked to in the industry, you usually spend way more time getting your data right than you do actually analyzing the data at the end of the day, right? Because you just got to put that homework into it, right? It's got to be right, then you can analyze it. So I think that was a very, very key point for it. And then lastly, just talking about the new normal, with COVID, what was the impacts? And I think everyone's kind of pretty much in agreement. The only good thing that came out of COVID is it just took the digital transformation and cranked it up to 12, right? I mean, everyone decided, now I need to be there. I got to do this. I've got people work from home. How do I manage them? How do I, what I used to be able to walk over and look over your shoulder, now I can't do that. How do I do that digitally? How do I ensure my quality is where it needs to be? That you're, all these type of things, you had to go to a digital world to make all that happen. So again, for everyone, I mean, just really, really excellent conversation today. I thank you all for taking the time. And I would like to thank the Secretary for facilitating yet another excellent event. And of course, the HIMAP bot members, Judy and Vince, for their ever-present guidance and thought leadership in developing the oversight for these fantastic sessions that provide very relevant information for all the membership. And of course, a big thank you to you, the HIMAP membership, to all you that are in attendance to this. These things happen because you guys keep coming back to them. So as long as you keep coming back, we'll keep making more of them. And we need you guys to join us. Please jump in, join in, give us your questions, because that's what they're here for. It's for an education for us all, not just what I want to hear, not just what the bot wants to hear, but what do you as our members, what's information you feel you need. So again, thank you again for all of that. And then lastly here, and I'm sorry, but cost effectiveness has been a big attraction why people come to the Philippines. But after these conversations we had today, when we're talking about these AI and these tools and the unprecedented clinical workforce we have, I think it's really more of it just validates it's more our amazing, talented resources and our HIMAP members, your innovative leadership, just like these members that spoke for us today. This allows the world to see the Philippines for more than just a labor arbitrage play, but for a place where you go to where the absolute talent you need is there, and not just the raw talent, but the actual or the oversight, the analytical talent, the new technology talent, because the forward thinkers are here, and it's now and it's live. It's not an idea anymore. It's being lived. And it's because of all of our membership, and because of you guys, we're now over 10% of the total IT BPM industry, and we continue growing. And I've been saying we're the fastest growing sector, and I've been saying that for, I don't know, 5-6 years, and I get to keep saying it because we truly are, because of all your hard work. So thank you for all of that. Again, it was a great session. Thank you for all of our speakers, for everyone engaged into it. Please join us on March 5th, because we have another event, and I think Patsy's got something to line up for that. But again, thank you all, and I hope you all enjoyed the session as much as I did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Praveen. Thank you, Sunil.